I picked up this Technics direct drive turntable and it sounds terrible. Let's fix that. Direct drive Technics turntables are deemed bulletproof. This one here is a Technics SL-QD33 from 1992. It is fully automatic, has quads for speed control, and all the functions work. The main problem seems to be the platter scraping. I checked if there was anything stuck under the platter as well as ensured that the turntable was level and nothing was obviously wrong with it. It seems like the PCB that holds the motor assembly warps with age and sags. This causes the platter to sit lower, causing it to scrape on the top shell of the turntable. Every time the platter scrapes at a specific point, it slows down a bit, which can be seen when you look at the strobe light. At a constant speed, the lights on the platter should appear stationary. So let's get up to opening the turntable. As always with all my repairs, I looked up the service manual, which was actually quite easy to find and is very thorough. It even had specifications for all the components on the schematics, so I went ahead and ordered all the electrolytic capacitors ahead of time. We'll know if the tiny gamble of not verifying it with the actual capacitors installed in this unit paid off. My logic in replacing the capacitors is to catch them before they leak and destroy other things in there, especially some of the Panasonic proprietary ICs. Plus, most electrolytic capacitors are rated for a few thousand hours anyway, and at 32, this unit would have well overcrossed it. Maybe. The bottom cover is held by 5 screws, one each in the 4 legs and one in the back center. Once inside, there are just 5 main sections: the power transformer, the mechanism block for the turn arm, motor PCB, and operation PCB. I go ahead and begin taking out the motor PCB first. While I do that, I'm also going to hope that removing it and reinstalling it correctly solves the scraping problem. Next is the operation PCB. All the electrolytic capacitors are only on these two. I have my temporary soldering station set up on my kitchen island to shoot this video. One neat trick that I would like to share is that with both Mouser and DigiKey, you can specify the customer reference number for each component. That way, each little package comes labeled with the corresponding component number as on the schematic or on the PCB. We have C208 here, and if you see this bag, here's C208. I find it saves a lot of time. I begin with cutting off the leads on the old caps. I find doing this lessens the chance of lifting a trace when desoldering. Remember that in most cases, the PCB is the most important part. You're replacing the old components, and replacement components can be procured again. But if you lift a trace or damage the PCB, you're gonna need to fix that, which can end up looking really bad. Make sure to check the polarities on all the caps before installing. On most electrolytic capacitors, there will be a band that goes towards the negative lead or the cathode. Please excuse the horrible camera angle, I had to delete a lot of footage because of that. This board is now ready. C108 caught me off guard since I couldn't find a replacement capacitor and there's no mention of it in the schematics. I went back and confirmed that C108 is indeed supposed to be blank. Next I proceed to the power board. We have this big axial electrolytic cap which comes off first. You might notice that I don't use flux while desoldering. This is a little neat trick I picked up from my friend James down at JDW on YouTube. New solder contains flux, so adding a tiny bit of new solder helps and is cleaner than adding flux. Next I proceed to the power board. We have this big axial electrolytic capacitor which comes off first. For axial capacitors, I sometimes use these lead spacing guides that I 3D printed some time ago. They are not required but can make things look neat and well aligned. With that board done, I proceed to the main operation PCB. On the main operation PCB, we just have these two capacitors over here. We need to be mindful that one of them has a pair of wires attached to the bottom side of the PCB going to the turn arm motor that needs to be desoldered and soldered back in the correct orientation. With all the boards recapped, we are safe to install them back and get ready for the smoke test. No smoke yet. And it seems like the scraping noise has gone away. The queuing function and the automatic turn arm parking seems to be working as well. Since it passed the smoke test, we need to set a couple of things. Basically the current and voltages on some of the pots that help with the calibration of the disk start and disk end detection. We need to flip the rubber mat to reveal these markings on the underside which are used for calibration. The markings say 48 and 65. Next, we take off this rubber cap close to the turn arm. With that done, we can enter test mode 1, which is done by pressing all 4 buttons and powering on the turntable. For the 8V adjustment, we need to set the turn arm to the 65 mark on the mat. I'm gonna install a new stylus anyway and do not have a protective cap for this one. Otherwise, I would have installed that before doing this. Do not do this with a good stylus without using the protective cap. The manual asks us to turn the adjustment screw close to the turn arm until the 45 indicator lights up, but for some reason it doesn't say lit. Also, it may appear that I'm using force, but I'm not. I'm holding the turn arm with my other hand to prevent it from swinging around. Well, we had smoke, so I cut off the power and flipped the turntable to see what's going on. It's still smoking and it looks like it's from this big capacitor on the power board. Let's take off the board and see what's going on under it. It may have been that I installed the capacitor the other way around. Quite a rookie mistake, and I must say I lost that never have I ever, that too on camera. I need to replace this capacitor, but before I do that, I need to make sure to clean all the goop it released. I'm gonna use some Q-tips, paper towels, and 91% alcohol. Cap juice is extremely corrosive and we don't want to have any of it left over there. With that done, I'm gonna reinstall the power board. Let's try adjusting the 8 volts again. I'm in test mode 1 and setting the turn arm to coincide with the 65 mark. That was easy. And also, the 45 indicator now stays lit. For the next adjustment, I need to be able to access the underside of the operation PCB to adjust the potentiometer, while keeping the turn arm at the 45 mark. I use 2 legs from an IKEA lac table to lift the turntable. Before I put the back cover on, I'm going to apply a drop of this PTFE lubricant on all the friction points and mechanical linkages. Lastly, and what I'm most excited about, is installing a new cartridge. Since this is a P-mount turntable, our options are limited, but this AT85EP from Audio Technica comes highly recommended. At slightly under 60 Canadian dollars on Amazon versus 50 something for just the stylus, changing the entire cartridge was a no-brainer. The date code says that it was made in January of this year, and on the other side, it says that it's still being made in Japan. Fancy. Changing out the cartridge is easy. We lock the turn arm and then there is just one Phillips head screw. The screw is unique, so for if some reason you don't have one, you need to order it separately since a new cartridge does not come with one. If we compare the old cartridge to the new one, I don't need to explain why it was imperative to change it out. The old cartridge on the top has a bent stylus to begin with. The new cartridge just clips on and I reinstall the screw and let's test it out. I would call that a win. If you like this video, you might also like another video of me messing around with a ThinkPad from the same decade. Be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.